Yeah, we do this strange thing where we will just buy a medicine because we know it works. We will ask the chemist for a consultation. Is that practice wrong?
I think self-medication is probably the biggest risk to public health in India.
I know someone who lost their earring in the left ear completely after a freak viral infection.
Viral infections have the potential to affect hearing and to cause hearing loss. Cases are on the rise as well. But if myopia goes out of control, which it is, we'll be seeing people in their 30s and 40s getting cataracts. You can call it diabetic retinopathy, or it can cause severe damage to your vision, and in extreme cases you could lose your eyesight altogether. Anyone who's diabetic needs to visit an eye doctor at least. Study which shows that quite a huge chunk of our population is deficient in vitamin D. Because we've gone more indoors of late, we don't get enough sunlight.
Is this industry lucrative?
There's a condition called tinnitus, which is basically kind of ringing in the ears. Vertigo is on the rise as well. Some doctors suggest that post-pandemic, the cases of...
Okay. What's up? Welcome to Dostcast. Nikkhil, it's a great pleasure to have you here. I am very fascinated by the pharma industry. I have just, for the last 3-4 years, just seen hate tweets against Big Pharma. Big Pharma ne ye kar diya, Big Pharma ne wo kar diya. Because you run such a successful pharmaceutical company here in India, is the villainization of pharma wrong? Or is it primarily a construct of the pharma that operates in the US?
I think the big pharma in India is very different to the big pharma that we think is there in the US. The big pharma in the US, I feel, is very commercially, strong, and it's very difficult to for big pharma in the US to come out with innovations that could benefit the entire world. It's more catered to the regulated markets like the US and Europe and the UK, for example. The big pharma in India, I feel it's more kind of innovation with a heart. So whatever we do here in India, we make sure that the affordability of those innovations is there. Because we have a huge population, and yes, by all means a growing middle class, but the affordability is always an issue. And we need to cater to more than 1.4 billion people. So whatever we do in India, we make sure that it is the fruits of that could be passed on to every member of the communities, whether they are from the metros or whether they are from the rural settings as well.
I see. एक बहुत prevalent चीज़ है that I notice in my household as well, that every household in India will have a Danish cookies box filled with all kinds of medicines that they purchase at random. Sometimes the medicines are left behind from doctors' prescriptions. Other times in India, we do this strange thing. I don't know if it's the same abroad, where we will just buy a medicine because we know it works. We will ask the chemist for a consultation. Is that practice wrong?
So I think self-medication is probably the biggest risk to public health in India. In India, it's difficult to have that prescription control at the chemist counter like what you would see in the West. And because of that, you have a lot of improper medication that people could potentially have. As a pharma company and as somebody who has a duty of care to the public, I would say that only buy medicines when it's prescribed by a doctor. Don't self-medicate. Even if your friends, family tell you, go and buy something, don't get tempted by all of that, because we have seen how much damage it can cause to people. So I think that is a big problem, and actually I think industry needs to work more with the chemist and druggist associations and the government associations, the government organizations, to really sort this issue out.
Tell me something. How does a pharma company work? I don't know the logistics or the exact way in which a pharma company goes from ideating a drug to manufacturing it, to distributing it in the market, to having it come to me as a consumer or a patient.
So for a new formulation or a new medicine, it starts with formulation studies to make sure that that particular molecule is formulated in the right vehicle or the right base. So they are called as pre-formulation and formulation studies. Thereafter, there are animal studies. So there's toxicology, there's which we call as preclinical studies, which again take a few months to even as good as long as a year or two. And thereafter, it's human clinical trials that start. So it starts from phase 1 clinical trials towards phase 2, phase 3. And after phase 3 is when the drug approval can happen, subject to the drug controller of India. So this is the entire process for a new drug application, which takes any time from I think 3 to 5 years roughly.
For one drug?
For a new drug which is not yet approved in India, or for which requires clinical evaluation here in India. Obviously, if something is already there in the US market or in the foreign markets, then that process is much more simpler, where you don't have to spend too long. You can get a waiver for your clinical trials, and you just need to submit some formulation data or stability data on that particular medicine. But otherwise, it's quite a long drawn process. So a lot of investment goes in developing a new drug, and then we're only talking about development. Thereafter, you have the marketing costs, you have the distribution costs, you have the regulatory costs, the legal costs. So a lot of people think that pharma means making quick money. It's not like that at all. It's actually never about that. It takes many years for a pharma company to recover those costs. And by the time the costs are recovered, there are 10, 15 other players on the market.
Do you think that with the new advent of Ayurveda medicines that don't have to cross the same hurdles that perhaps pharma does, pharma is perhaps pushed behind, where people are now preferring Ayurvedic cures which have no strong scientific backing, considering the kind of loopholes that pharma people have to jump through just to get one drug passed?
So in India right now, there's a lot of research happening when it comes to Ayurvedic therapies as well. And obviously, in India, people have an emotional connect with this kind of medicine. So I think people need to have a choice. If they want to go for an allopathic treatment, it's their choice. If they want to go for something herbal or Ayurvedic or even homeopathic for that matter, there's a choice. So there needs to be a regulatory framework for all kinds of medicines, and that's what I think has happened in India over the last few years. It's not that one form of medicine is easier to launch. It's never about that. It's more about giving people the choice.
Okay. And when it comes to you just mentioned the kind of loopholes and the long drawn out process it takes to release a new drug in India. What kind of governmental organizations typically work with the pharma company to make something like this happen? You mentioned one, DGCI. Who else?
So we have the CDSCO, which is the Central Drug Authority. So all the data we need to submit to this authority. They also have a select expert committee of doctors who also kind of look at the data to see whether it's safe, efficacious in India for patients. So they give their expert views on it as well. So that's the main kind of regulatory body that we need to submit our data to, and that drug authority is responsible ultimately for the safety, efficacy, and quality of the medicines. So apart from that, there are obviously a lot of CROs, research organizations, or even government research institutes which pharma companies usually collaborate with to develop new medicines. And these days, that's happening. We're seeing a lot of public-private relationships where we can really fast track that process of developing essential medicines that are not currently there in India, for which we need a faster route to market.
What do you think is roughly the market size of Indian pharma, organized, unorganized?
So as of now, the Indian pharma industry is worth about $50 billion US dollars. It is expected that by 2030 we reach a figure of 130 billion. But the government has set an ambitious target of reaching almost 450 billion by 2047.
How do they plan to do that? That's a lot. That's so much.
So actually, I mean, as it does feel look like a lot, but I think if you see the way the industry is moving towards, we are kind of transforming from a volume-driven industry to a more value-driven industry, which will be more innovation-driven. So as that happens, we will be able to create value in what we sell. So as especially a lot of companies in the MSME sector are now investing in R&D, in innovation. So I think that will really drive the industry moving forward, and even not even 2047, but I expect in the next 10 years we'll see a drastic change in the way the pharma industry, develops, and the kind of innovations that will come. I was actually speaking to a patent attorney a few days ago, and he was saying that about probably 5 years ago, a lot of the new patents were filed by the foreign MNC companies, but today a lot of patents are filed by Indian-born MSME companies, which I think is a really encouraging and heartening fact for us, because it shows that innovation is coming right from from the grassroots levels here in India.
And what's the kind of patents that are being filed generally? Matlab, what is India? What is Indian pharma in the MSME space known for?
So there's a lot of work that has happened in the fields of cancer, for example, in cardiovascular medicine, in neurological conditions, in nephrological conditions like kidney problems. It's across the board in terms of the segment in medicine. Even in our case, we are doing a lot of innovative work when it comes to the ophthalmic sector, the eye care sector, the ENT sector as well. There's a lot to do in India. We have a huge population, and actually a lot of our medical and therapeutic needs are in many ways are unique to the rest of the world. So there are a lot of conditions in India that need to be treated where there may not be a requirement for this similar kind of therapy in other countries, especially in the US. So we need to be self-reliant when it comes to R&D and innovation. I think the pandemic has really taught us that we need to be reliant, and we need to be able to develop our own medicines, especially vaccines as well, moving forward. If at all there is another pandemic, let's hope it doesn't happen. But if there is, we need to have the research ecosystem in this country to really develop those new therapies, new vaccines, at a very fast pace, and market it and make it available here in India.
What do you think about the prospects of someone wanting to enter pharmacy or pharmacology? I hope they're interchangeable terms, as a career. I understand that you have a family business in pharmacy, but for someone who wants to start out fresh, should they pursue a degree in pharmacy? Should they go and apprentice at a chemist? Should they perhaps join a lab where they can research? Is this industry lucrative?
So I think it's a very interesting time to be part of the pharma industry. As I mentioned, it's a time of change. We're moving towards a more research-driven industry. If anyone wants to get into this, firstly, they need the technical knowledge, which can come through the right degree. So they would probably do a B Pharm degree followed by an M Pharm. And if they want to get into more a business kind of side of things, then maybe an MBA. However, I personally haven't done an MBA, and I think you just learn on the field. So I think the technical knowledge is, I think, the key. And I would also actually encourage a lot of youngsters to go into pharmaceutical research as well. Not just the manufacturing aspect of industrial pharmacy, but the research aspect of it as well. These days you can get quite a well-paid job also if you have that kind of expertise. It hasn't happened historically in India. Our pharmacy graduates go more into industrial manufacturing rather than R&D and new product development and all of that. But I think the scene is changing now, and I think it's a very, very exciting time to join the industry, especially if you want to motivate a youth to go into the sciences. You can actually tell them what is happening in the industry now, the kind of new drugs that are being developed in India, and hopefully that will motivate them to do the same.
Interesting. I recall when I was in the UK, I was telling you earlier off camera that the process of buying a NyQuil made me exactly aware about just how expensive over-the-counter medication is in Western countries. Why are medicines so cheap in India? Why are they, like for example, if I go and buy a Disprin, 10, 11, 12 rupees max to max, why are they so dirt cheap compared to other countries?
So in India, quite a few of the medicines fall under drug price control, which we call as DPCO pricing, which kind of restricts the cost, the total cost, the total price of a medicine. So that's one of the reasons why you would find them being, on the more affordable side. But on the other hand, even those which are not part of price control also, we need to make it affordable for all. We have a huge population and also quite a lot of disparity between the rich and the poor as well. The medicines that any pharma company launches here in India needs to be affordable to people living in the large metros, to even the rural settings as well. So we can't really make it too expensive. And I think we have a duty of care to make sure that affordability is always maintained. And in our industry, we call it, being cost effective. And I think that needs to, we should be proud that India, has a market which is cost effective, for pharma and healthcare.
Moving on from here, you tell me something about what is something that people don't know about the pharma industry that maybe they take for granted or they think this is a big myth. What's like a secret?
I think a lot of people think that pharma means money making, you
Yeah.
know, and actually it's quite the opposite of that, because there is as a pharma industry, we have a responsibility to the public.
Mhm.
We have a responsibility to public health. So a lot of the things that we do is to kind of make sure we create an impact. And I think many people may not quite understand what I'm saying here, but for example, like I may not be around tomorrow, but a lot of our medical conditions will be. Cancer will still be around, glaucoma will still be around, myopia will still be around. So what impact can I create? So after me, my innovations, my creations, my research will kind of have an impact. And this feeling is a very strong motivational factor for us here. And even sometimes we invest in research heavily and then we sell it at a rock bottom price in India. So it's not all about making money. In fact, in our case, I think almost 15 to 20% on average of our net profit goes into R&D and research. And in addition to that, another 10% of our profits go for a charitable cause, and another 5% of it goes to public health awareness campaigns. So, I think we need to understand that pharma industry needs to have some kind of a philanthropic agenda. And that is what in my company we're trying to achieve as well. And not many people know about it. They think, what, it's a lot of money-making opportunity and all of that.
I think people have been tainted by, again, reading too many conspiracy theories about big pharma controlling the world and all of that, which somehow bleeds into India, because they often think about US pharma. But you were mentioning how you want some of the drugs and medicines to be there and helping society long after you're gone. I can only think about a medicine, which is also now my favorite cocktail, penicillin, right? Think about how back in the day, doctors would administer penicillin for everything. But it was a precursor drug, which then led to so many other drugs. It was a precursor to many drugs, which led to so many other drugs. In our own lifetimes, we saw polio campaigns, and now polio has been eradicated. So it's very interesting to see how the medicines we now take for granted, our ancestors would literally kill for them. That's how lucky we are. But your company specializes in eye health and ear health, nose, throat, ENT, all of those domains. When it comes to eye health, considering you have tons of data, what does the state of public eye health look like in India?
I think currently in India and probably in the rest of the world, I think we are experiencing an eye health pandemic. Because of the advent of the smartphone and the screen exposure that we have, our eyes are subject to an unbelievable amount of stress. And we take it for granted. We don't really know the damage it's causing. In many ways, we are in uncharted territory. So young kids are becoming more short-sighted, which is a condition called myopia. It's estimated that almost 1 in every 4 children in India is myopic or has myopia. In the world, a recent study showed that 1 in every 3 child may be myopic. It is estimated that by 2050, 1 in every 2 children in India will be myopic. So we are, I think there's a lot that needs to be done in trying to raise the awareness of eye health, trying to have good tech habits for our children and for adults also. So we look after our eyes. In many ways, we take our eyes for granted. We take our ears for granted, for example. And when something goes wrong with our ears and eyes, we panic, we freak out, we don't know what to do. So I think I think with regards to eye health, a lot needs to be done. I think we're still at an infancy stage in terms of public health awareness.
I remember the shame I felt when I got glasses as a kid. I'm wearing lenses now, so you can't see. But I was in 4th grade and I was playing too much video games. I'd play PS2 and whatever other video games I could just play it non-stop. And that changed my life, where I was one of the few kids in my class who had glasses. So a class of 50 students in 4th grade. About 4 dudes had glasses. I became the 5th, and 3 girls had glasses. So this is, of course, when I was 9. This is a long time ago. I'm 27 years old. But to my surprise now, if I go look at my younger cousin's classroom now, almost everyone has glasses. All the YouTubers I know have glasses. It's become much more of a pandemic and it's a very acceptable behavior to be on your screen all day long and to not see vistas and to not care about it. Like when my parents use eye drops, I was like, why are you using eye drops? What is this routine? Because it makes sense to have a moisturizer and we have a chamomile tea, but use eye drops. I find that very odd. But they both have fantastic eye health, and I don't.
Yeah, I think see with smart screens, 2 main problems could happen. One is that you're prone to being more short-sighted, which is called myopia, which affects children, and then as they grow up, they have a very, you can say, a larger minus number, which will affect their vision most of their life. Those children may be prone to getting early cataracts. So now when you look at cataract surgery, we're used to people in their 50s, 60s plus getting cataracts. But if myopia goes out of control, which it is, we'll be seeing people in their 30s and 40s getting cataracts as well.
So what is cataract? I've heard the name. I don't quite understand what it is.
So cataracts happen when the lens gets opaque a bit.
Okay.
So your vision is compromised because of that, and then you need to do what the eye surgeons perform a surgery called as phacoemulsification, where they remove the old lens and they insert an artificial lens so that your vision is clear. Now that is a normal surgery, which they call it an aging eye condition, which usually happens. But in this case, if myopia goes out of control, people are going to get cataract at a younger age. They're going to get conditions like glaucoma as well, retinal problems. So a whole range of eye conditions can stem out of short-sightedness, which is a concern. The second aspect is the more screen time you have. You can strain your eyes, so you're going to get dry eyes. And a lot of eye doctors recommend that you need to lubricate eyes with certain lubricating eye drops. These are prescription medicines which are usually prescribed by a doctor. But it's a simple concept. It's a bit like, you need to lubricate an engine, a car engine. It's the same way our ocular surface of the eye also gets dry because the blink rate reduces. So we blink less when we look at a screen, and that's why you have evaporation of tears and you get dry eyes. So these two are the big problems stemmed from a digital age.
Very interesting. I have many friends who have dry eyes, and I don't understand why that is. Do you generally since you have so many products and drugs in the eye health domain, What is the most common ailment, eye ailment, that people come to your chemists with, or that you find in your studies?
So dry eyes is probably the most common in India. I mean, most ophthalmologists would probably say that as well. That's the most common complaint. So you go with strained eyes, red, irritated eyes, itchy eyes, for example. So it's all kind of symptoms of dry eyes. The next big thing would probably be glaucoma. But
Sorry, what is glaucoma exactly?
glaucoma is a condition. It's basically where the pressure inside your eye rises, and that could lead to irreversible blindness. The problem with glaucoma is that there are no symptoms. It's a silent condition, so it usually starts to kind of cook up inside your eyes after you turn 40 years of age. You would go for something else. So you would go to your eye doctor because you have, say, dry eyes, and that's when your eye doctor would diagnose glaucoma as well. And that's why, from a pharma perspective, we advise patients that you need to get your eyes checked at least once a year, even if you have no symptoms, because a lot of eye symptoms, a lot of eye conditions are symptomless. You don't know where anything is wrong. So unless you go and get it checked, you will know that you have glaucoma. So I think needs to be emphasized a lot. There are symptom forming conditions like dry eyes and myopia and all of that, but there's also a lot of symptomless eye conditions which need to be looked at by an eye doctor.
I remember when I go and get my eyes checked at a regular clinic, usually the optical shops also have that now. They do an eye pressure test, which sort of hurts the eye. Is that for glaucoma?
Yeah, that's to check the intraocular pressure, which is advised to be done at least once every year. Especially if you're over 40 years of age, or if you have anyone in the family who's been diagnosed with glaucoma as well. And that is very important. So they have it at the opticians, or even eye doctors will be able to do these tests for you. But either way, I think a very strong emphasis has to be made on the fact that once a year, even a child needs to be seen by an eye doctor, because our eyes are under unbelievable amounts of stress currently.
Yeah. And we don't exactly live in the savannah or in the outdoors where we get to enjoy vistas and unbroken line of sight, which I believe is very therapeutic for the eyes, since we all live in cities with lots of right angles and closed surfaces. So then the question arises, when it comes to eye health, what can parents do in their early years? Should they take away the screens?
I think in this day and age, to reduce screen time is a challenge. And it's not just about screen time after school. And these days, a lot of schools also encourage the use of laptops and computers for the usual academics. So the only thing that a parent can do is firstly ensure that the child gets enough outdoor play. At least 1 to 2 hours of outdoor play in the presence of sunlight. So that's what's advised, because sunlight is good for the eyes, especially for children. So that's something that can be advised. Then keeping the right screen distance. So it's advocated that at least at 1 arm's length distance should be kept between
even
a
though you
phone.
look strange in public, but this is the way to do it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. But it needs to be, kind of common sense. I mean, it shouldn't be too close, but there needs to be a reasonable distance. So parents need to basically monitor that. The other thing is also, these days, children tend to use their phone late at night in the dark. So the background light should be bright enough. It shouldn't be using your phone in a dark room, because that kind of puts more pressure and strain on the eyes.
Interesting.
And then there's the aspect of blue light also, which can potentially, kind of cause problems, to the eyes. So that can be done. On top of that, good tech habits, as I mentioned earlier on, in terms of taking regular breaks from the screen. So there's a 20-20-20 rule, which basically says that every 20 minutes, somebody needs to look away for at least 20 feet for 20 seconds. So I think those habits can reduce eye strain because of digital screens. It's a difficult thing to enforce, but I think as the awareness kind of grows, and we are trying our best to raise the awareness along with eye doctors all across the country, but I think kids will understand. I think we need to go into schools and we need to explain children the problems that this can do. and all the whatever precautions can be taken to keep their eyes healthy.
Nikhil, talk to me about diabetic blindness. I don't know the exact scientific term. I think it is diabetic diabetic retinopathy. I have just an anecdote from this. I have one of my father's friends. He has a minus 30 uh, prescription in both eyes, I think. His his glasses, you can't even use those. With the new technology, you can slice the thickness of the glass. He's got the bottom of a Pepsi or like a Coke, that thick of glasses, and he has diabetes and whatnot. I did not know that eyesight and diabetes were related.
So a lot of people, rightly, associate diabetes with heart problems. The diabetes could lead to heart attacks. It could lead to, it could affect the kidneys and other organs. But what a lot of people don't know is that it can damage your eyes as well. And you can call it diabetic retinopathy, or you can call it a diabetic eye, for example. But it can cause severe damage to your vision, and in extreme cases you could lose your eyesight altogether. So anyone who's diabetic needs to visit an eye doctor at least once a year, at least probably every 6 months if they already have a diagnosis of diabetes. And there's a lot of interventions that can happen thereafter. There are injections which one can use to protect the eyes from diabetes. There's some laser therapies and a lot of things that can be done. So there is a treatment for it, but the problem is that people don't pay attention to it, and then by the time they go to an eye doctor, it's too late. They've lost most of their vision. So I think this is what needs to be told to people who are, especially those who are already diagnosed as diabetic.
I remember reading on your website, one of your supplements slash drugs can even help people get rid of the reading glasses after the age of 40. I found that very interesting. Is that really possible?
So, I mean, we recently got approval for a drug to treat presbyopia in adults in
What is
India.
presbyopia?
So presbyopia is a condition where you cannot see nearby things very easily. You can only your near vision is compromised. It's not, you wouldn't call it a disease. It's basically a natural aging process of the eye. So they say once you turn 40, your muscles get weak in the eyes. And that leads to a condition called presbyopia, for which the standard treatment has been wearing reading glasses so that you can see near things better. There are also many other treatment options as well, like lasers and other surgical interventions as well. But we came out with a therapeutic option, eye drops, which could help in early presbyopia especially. You can't use it for an entire lifetime. But initially, when you get the problem, you could use it as an option. But it's a prescription option, and the doctor will decide whether you need these eye drops or whether you're not suitable for them, because not everyone is suitable for all eye drops. That decision needs to be made by an eye doctor, and that's very important. I think when this came out in the media, there was a massive media blitz, and it created a huge media hype. And everyone started to kind of say that, oh well, maybe we don't need glasses and all of that, but that's not the case at all. It's just a therapeutic option, and the doctor will make the final decision whether these eye drops would help or not. Saying that, these eye drops have undergone clinical trials here in India. They've been approved through all the processes that I mentioned at the start. And I think treatments like these would actually pave the way for bigger innovation by Indian companies like ourselves in the eye care space. I think this is just the start. I mean, we're looking at treatments for myopia, we're looking at treatments for rare eye conditions, all indigenously formulated here in India, which is not even available in the West, for example. So this is just the start. I mean, yes, we do get excited about what we do, but what is to come, I think, is really exciting.
What stands in the way of this? Because I'm sure you know about Andrew Huberman. He is the prominent iAuthority with his famous Huberman Lab podcast, and he writes and talks about sunlight, eye health, all of that. Um, how do you think? I mean, considering that America is where it's all at in terms of innovation and whatnot, do you think we can actually solve these major eye issues before them at a faster rate and perhaps surprise the world?
I think the way the ecosystem is changing in India, I actually believe it's possible to do that, especially with a lot of that innovation coming from the MSME sectors. There are a lot of budding entrepreneurs who are really, really kind of obsessed with developing new medicines here in India. I think it's very encouraging. Yes, they need probably a lot more support. They need funding. And I think the government has done well to actually fund Indian-born MSME companies with the budget required for R&D. But I think a lot more needs to be done. See, research and innovation is never an easy space. I mean, it's full of failures. Say, out of 10 things you do, maybe 8 things will fail and 2 things will be a massive success. So, but I still think that India can do it. We can, and that too at probably 1/10 the cost of what would happen in the US as well.
What does ENTOD mean? I mean, I assume ears, nose, throat, and then overdrive, or I don't know.
So ENTOD was conceptualized on the basis of the 5 human senses. So the E is eyes, which is sorry, the E is ears, which is the sense of hearing. The N is the nose, which is the sense of smell. The T is throat, which is the sense of taste. The O is ophthalmology, or the eyes, which is the sense of sight. And the D is dermatology, or the skin, which is the sense of touch. And we believe that if we could enhance these 5 senses, which we all take for granted, we can do wonders when it comes to healthcare. I mean, most other body systems are looked after. Like, people know how to look after their heart, more or less now. People are concerned about cancers. People are concerned about their liver, their kidneys, and all of that. But people don't seem to quite understand these 5 senses. And I think that is what ENTOD symbolizes, and that is what we stand. In fact, our logo, has a benzene ring, which represents chemistry and science. And the lotus inside represents a philosophy, and a philosophy that no matter how muddy the waters around you will be, you will always blossom and shine. So it's basically science meeting philosophy, which I think is important in a country like India, where people have a strong emotional attachment to their culture, to their tradition. We can't just ignore it and do something completely different or emulate the West. It has to be in line with our own people and their thinking.
Yeah, like, think about the fact that when it comes to ear health, we just have these 2 pieces of appendage hanging from our skull, and the only time we use them beyond listening, which we're not even really listening sometimes, is to scratch behind or inside the ear, or once when you're taking a shower, or the worst is using an earbud. But it's such an underrated part. And you were mentioning that, unlike a cold or a flu, you know what to do. If you've got an earache, you're going to start freaking out really badly. My sister, as a kid, used to get earaches a lot. And she would cry at the ENT, and the compounder had to hold her down, and the ENT would check her ears. But I never really warmed up to the idea why Indians don't care about this. And a couple of things. Number one, basic ear health precautions, basic hygiene.
So with ear health, the biggest problem is sound pollution. It's noise. We live in a world where we use our earpods, our earbuds, headphones. They do probably more damage to the ears than we think.
How so?
Because you are kind of enhancing the volume, and our eardrums are not really used to that kind of focus. In terms of the vibrations created, through these headphones. So using headphones isn't quite the safest way to protect your ears. And that has led to a lot of hearing loss problems in India. So people now experience sudden hearing loss, for example, which you can imagine is such a terrifying thing to experience.
Yeah.
So that is one of the problems. There are a lot of ear conditions which are on the rise. So there's a condition called tinnitus, which is basically kind of ringing in the ears. That is on the rise. Vertigo is on the rise as well. Some doctors suggest that post-pandemic, the cases of vertigo have gone up.
Fear of heights?
No. Vertigo is dizziness.
Okay.
You kind of lose your balance. You suddenly feel disoriented. So that's on the up as well.
Because of the ears? Because the ears maintain
It's all
balance?
related to the ears, because the ears, the middle ear and the inner ears, kind of that kind of leads to the balance that that we have in our lives and when we walk and stand. So that is being affected. So with ear as well, hearing loss is a big problem. Together with all these ear health problems as well. So the awareness needs to be there. At the same time, we need to make sure that there is good volume control when we use headphones. There's something called as a safe volume zone, which we need to comply to at least 60% of the time. It needs to be in that safe zone. And a lot can be done to raise the awareness of these simple simple advice to protect your ears as well.
Interesting. And what about earbuds and earwax? What is your take on it? Should people take it out? Should people let it be?
I don't think I don't think people should insert any object into their ears whatsoever.
So like a nice blunt Nataraj pencil to scrape that out?
No, that is dangerous. That is completely, that actually has led to a lot of problems. I mean, I speak to a lot of ENT specialists, and a lot of patients who come to them is because of these situations where they put something in the ear that damages the eardrum, causes all kinds of problems, leads to infections. So whatever treatment for ears has to be done, it should be done by an ENT specialist. They can, carry out, earwax removal. They can clean your ears, for example. And even if they suggest a product, they will tell you how to use it safely. It shouldn't be done by yourself. I mean, we see it on the railway platforms and people trying to clean their ears.
They're called kan melias.
Yes. Absolutely, and that's dangerous. I don't think that should be done at all. It should be, you go to an ENT specialist if you feel you have itchy ears or some problems. It could be a simple thing like just hardening of earwax, for which you have ear drops available as well on prescription, which a doctor can prescribe. So there is a solution, a safe solution for everything.
And in your experience, you've said that the ENTs report the highest amount of people inserting foreign object in their ear and complaining. What else? Do you feel that younger people are also losing their hearing, or is it more common in the older people?
See, there's something called as age-related hearing loss, which has always been around.
Okay.
But these days, a lot of ENT specialists are reporting hearing loss in younger people as well. Now, it could be attributed to certain viral infections, possibly. They're not really sure why.
Yeah.
It could be associated with many other conditions.
Sorry, just a sec. The viral infection. I know someone who lost their hearing in the left ear completely after a freak viral infection. That's what they said.
So viral infections have the potential to affect hearing and to cause hearing loss.
Is that why our ears are closed when we are sick?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not very common for you to see that, but it does happen, and the cases are on the rise as well. But ENTs are, experts. We have probably some of the best ENTs in the world here in India, so they know how to treat these conditions. So any issues are there, one can always visit an ENT specialist and get it sorted out.
In your opinion, as someone who runs a pharma company, what are some basic, like I asked you about ear hygiene, eye hygiene, so that perhaps they have to use less medicines and they can, take care of their own eyes?
I think with regards to eyes, the best thing that a person can do is to take regular breaks from the screen, get enough exposure to sunlight. There is a study which shows that quite a huge chunk of our population is deficient in vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is very important for the eyes to maintain good eye health. Because we've gone more indoors of late, we don't get enough sunlight,
That's
so
true.
we don't have enough vitamin D, which is really important not just for the eyes but for many body functions. So I think that is the advice for children and adults. And if you're not sure, just go to an eye doctor once a year. Have that 1 month, for those who have no eye problems at all, have that 1 month in a year where you know what, I'm going to go to an eye doctor and get myself checked out, even if I'm perfectly fine. And I think that will make a difference, and automatically people will start doing the right thing for their eye health.
Is the pharma business very competitive? Do you have a lot of competitors, and you have to spend a lot of time ensuring that your drug comes out first, you get the first patents? Is it as hostile as people make it out to be?
There is a lot of competition in India. Even in our own segment of ophthalmology, we have almost 150 companies marketing eye drops in the market in India. But I think the days of who does it first has gone. I think we are in an era where who does it the best, and who does it keeping the public in mind. And how, like, for example, I mean, we have a treatment for myopia, but more important than that, we have a massive awareness program for myopia as well.
Right.
So who gets involved in public health initiatives and genuinely does it with a heart, will, I think, be the winner in the years to come. And that is why we are getting involved with health awareness campaigns all across India, in areas of eye health, in areas of hearing, in areas of skin health. I think that is the way forward. I think pharma industry is not just about selling a medicine. It's about selling an entire health service to the people of the country, where the medicine is just one small part. And I think that philosophy and culture is which is kind of developing in India. And I think moving forward, it'll be about that.
Have you lost business in the short term with this humanitarian approach?
Not at all. I think, with anything where the intention is honest, it's clear, and it's for a good cause, I think it always gives something positive back. For us, when we started doing health awareness campaigns many years ago, we were the first to do it, at least in the eye health space, like for myopia, for example.
So give me an example of an eye health campaign that a company like yours would run.
So we do this National Myopia Week every year. So far, we've reached out to almost 20 crore children, teachers, and parents in the last 2 years. We started this after the pandemic, when myopia basically hit the roof, and a lot of the eye doctors who we know started telling us that this is a bigger problem than we think it is. So we did this awareness campaign, and even though it's a weekly campaign, we run it all throughout the year. We have the next National Myopia Week campaign coming on Children's Day. So it's around November every year. And it's been greatly successful in terms of putting the message out across. So we use social media influencers, we use doctor ambassadors, we do radio ads, we get involved with TV. We even did this year, we're doing this rap song also to kind of make it cool so that the young people will understand it, and that also in different languages. So we try and innovate in this campaign as much as possible, and we do it with a pure heart. I mean, for us, there is no commercial value when we actually get involved in this campaign. I mean, the way we do it is, and I have to thank my team with, for the passion that they have for these kind of campaigns. So that is one example. There are many others. We do a glaucoma week campaign, where we do these reels and we make it viral, and we kind of raise the awareness of glaucoma as well. But yeah, I mean, this is something that we do and we enjoy doing it. And for us, a major part of what we do is this now. The medicines and all of those are there, and that will continue. That will be business as usual. But this no one does. So this is what we wanted to really kind of take it to the next level in India, and then make that into an inspiration for the rest of the world as well.
What's the most frustrating part about your job? And I ask you this because from the outside, it seems to me that it isn't a very glamorous profession, that you have to perhaps spend your time around lab coats and labs and looking at all kinds of salts and lots of paperwork and back and forth and packaging. So, do you find all of this exciting? Do you ever feel like, man, I wish I was in a cooler profession that at least looked cooler on paper?
No, not at all. I think I was born for this, and I'm a scientist and a researcher by profession. So business was something I had to learn. So I'm, first a scientist and probably second a businessman. So for me, I get the maximum satisfaction when I'm in a lab, wearing that lab coat, doing something different, and knowing that I may be the first one in the world to do this. Can you imagine the feeling of doing something for the first time in the history of mankind or humankind? I think that feeling is amazing. Business is normal. I mean, business is very honestly boring. What is exciting is innovation. It is, trying to create a general impact on the health of your people, trying to do something which no one has done when it comes to eye care or healthcare as a whole. So I find it really exciting, and that is one of the reasons why I encourage our youngsters to go into science, to take on the subject, to go into research, and to really make their country proud.
It's very inspirational. If you look back at your times in a laboratory, what are some big failures that you remember that still hurt or frustrate you till this day? Because sometimes when we are, say, involved in discovering something, we work feverishly. We work without looking at the time. The trope of the scientist in a lab for 20, 30 hours becomes true. And you can sense that breakthrough is around the corner, but it doesn't happen. So, could you perhaps take me to a lab where you were wearing this lab coat and you were just about to maybe invent the next new drug that could change humanity or at least put India on the map, and then you failed?
So, research is a very difficult landscape. I think 8 out of 10 things that you do in research probably will fail. But that will be, a springboard for the 2 out of 10 successes that you're going to have that may possibly change the world. So you should get used. Any researcher who is listening to this podcast knows about all the struggles that they may have when it comes to research. But at the same time, it's exciting. You should be ready for failures when it comes to research, especially in India, where the research landscape isn't as well established as, say, the US, for example. There will be a lot of obstacles from a regulatory point of view, from a commercial point of view. But the idea is, never to give up. It is that one piece of innovation that you may get involved in or be a part of that could change the world, and that will create a legacy for generations to come. So the excitement is there even during failure, and we're used to it. Even when I enter a lab, I know that there is a chance that half the things that I'm going to do may not actually materialize, but it's okay.
Do you yourself still work in labs? Do you?
Very much. So in my routine, at least 2 days in a week, I'm in the lab. I wear a lab coat. I go there, work with my team. And I think that is what energizes me. That is what makes me realize that this is where I belong and this is what I need to do. And that's when you see a sense of purpose. They say your karma is your mission, basically. So, it's that's where I get the most excited, in terms of, can I actually do something? Is it going to happen? And then when I enter a lab, I'm like, yeah, there is a chance. If I enter my normal, office cabin, I get bored after sitting for 2 hours. I'm like, what do I do now?
Someone else signed this for me.
It's the usual. It's your marketing, your sales, your business, your finance. Okay, that's everyone can do it.
Yeah.
But what you do in a lab, not many people can do.
Yeah.
So that is where I think I get maximum inspiration.
Have you ever had chemicals blow in your face? Kaboom.
It's happened right from my university days when there have been accidents, all kinds, all sorts, part and parcel of being a researcher.
What's the worst chemical reaction you've been exposed to?
No, nothing as such. Nothing dangerous that I could say. But sometimes, you have leakage, spillage of certain chemicals which could burn your skin, for example. And that's when you get a reality check that how careful you need to be. Make sure you're properly covered up. You're wearing the right kind of gloves and, protective equipment. It's part and parcel of what we do, But but the excitement of it is amazing.
Yeah.
I know that we're in an era where science isn't as exciting as it used to be, for a lot of youngsters. But I hope that this inspires youngsters to take science seriously and the kind of things they can achieve through science. And in India, I think the potential is huge. We have such a huge population who can enter the scientific and research field and change the world. I mean, we actually have it in us to change the world. We just didn't probably have the confidence in the past. But I
Or
think
the
moving forward,
infrastructure,
the
right?
infrastructure, the finance, the support, the regulatory support, the government is doing its best. Actually, they have a lot of the R&D schemes now to help people like us and the youngsters. And I think it's just there in us. We have a scientific brain. And most importantly, we have a heart as well. So if we can link an emotional agenda to science, we can do wonders.
If you're okay sharing this, and you don't have to if you don't want to, you entered ENTOD as a third generation entrepreneur. Roughly at what revenue were you operating then, and have you been able to grow it? ऐसे बोलते हैं इंडिया में ना कि second generation ने आके फिर उसको और कर दिया, third generation ने और कर दिया. That's how family business grows.
Yeah, so I think when I joined the business, it was a relatively small organization that my grandfather started in 1977. Like what inspires one the most is the family legacy. And I was always inspired by what my grandfather did, what my dad did, and what dad is still doing now. And I think that drives you to do more and better. So when I started off, it was a relatively small thing. Today it's grown, I think, almost probably 8 to 10 times of what it was. I don't want to take credit for it. I think it's an entire teamwork. And ultimately, I think it's the blessings of my grandfather who's no longer there. But he wanted his organization to really flourish in India and around the world. I mean, we're in almost 67 countries worldwide where we supply our medicines now. So it's a pride for us. It's a positive pride for us to really, make India shine on the world map when it comes to specialty pharmaceuticals. So yes, we have made a lot of progress in the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years. But I think, as they say, every day you start from zero. So you wake up in the morning and you're a nobody, and then how do you become a somebody by the end of the day? I think that's what it's about. So I'm not complacent about what we've done. Once in a while, it's good to get a pat on your back or shoulder and somebody to say, wow, you did a good job. And for 10 seconds, you will be inspired and then you'll forget about it. Then again, the next day, what do? So, I don't look back too much in terms of the impact I've had. But yes, I would love to see the impact that I've created in public health many years down the line. I think that impact would really make me feel that it's all been worth it after all.
So I don't think people understand the word public health very well. I think it's used more in think tank circles. What is public health? Is it the administration at a large scale of medicines to help people of the country? Is it to push policy to enact for example, easy availability of vaccines?
So, public health is basically, to make sure that the health and well-being of our people is looked after. Well-being could be physical well-being, emotional well-being, and even you can say spiritual well-being as well. So that is basically what public health is. It's to make sure that we prevent diseases. It's to make sure that we have the right health policies that encourage good health and encourage our people to stay healthy, look after their lives, look after their health, because health is everything. It's primary. Everything else comes secondary. So public health, I would say it is, basically it's life. It's not even a separate category. If there is no public health, then if the public health isn't looked into, the country will be in chaos. So looking after our people is very key. And it's not just the government institutions and doctors that have a responsibility there. The pharma industry has an equal responsibility in making sure that our people stay healthy. And this is why I keep mentioning public health all the time. That is the goal. That is the end goal of what we're trying to achieve. Everything else will happen the way it does. But in terms of can I reduce the prevalence of myopia in India, that will be an achievement.
Yeah.
Can I reduce the cases of glaucoma in India through awareness by tying up with doctors and government institutes? That will be exciting for me. And as a pharma company, I think this is what should drive us. It shouldn't be the commercials. It shouldn't be all of those things. That will happen anyways. I think what should drive us is the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is to improve the health of the nation and for a company to then get involved in philanthropy.
Yeah, so you are all about impact-driven entrepreneurship as opposed to just for profits, which is again the stereotypical definition of when people think about a pharma company. I guess from here, something that I'm trying to piece together what else is that people perhaps don't know about a pharma company that they might be interested in. For example, if someone were to go and actually yes, let me ask you this. ये जो chemist होते हैं इनकी किससे like how do the chemists buy the medicines and who are their wholesalers? How do you if I wanted to basically flood the market with your medicine, how would I go about it? Would I approach your company and say I want to sell your medicine and then we do a negotiation? Like how do your distribution networks work?
So within our distribution network, we have consignee agents. We have what we call them super distributors, where we directly sell our medicines to them. They would then distribute it to stockists around the country. Stockists would then sell those medicines to the chemist shops. So that is the usual supply chain. And that is also very much part of the pharma industry. It is not just us as manufacturers or researchers that are, constitute the majority of what the industry is. So that is the entire chain. And this is how we work. Now, in some cases now, because we have a lot of online stores, sometimes some companies decide to directly sell it to them because then they have an online presence which can then span out to the rest of the country as well.
Right.
So our distribution models are also transforming with the advent of online pharmacies. And there are loads of them these days.
But the online pharmacy model is very difficult, right? For example, I've tried to use one of them. It's not as easy as Blinkit. It certainly requires a prescription. And you can't just order whatever you want.
Yeah, there are restrictions because see, you're not buying normal goods. You're buying a medicine which is a controlled item. So there has to be processes in place to make sure that the doctor's prescription is there and certain regulatory systems are followed. So you can never have an online system that will replace the current physical chemist shops. But on the other hand, it will always be part of the supply chain, so that people have an option of whether buying it online or whether through a prescription or whether going to a chemist shop and buying your medicines. I personally enjoy the process of going physically to a chemist shop and buying something because I think that face-to-face interaction with your local chemist helps.
Yeah.
And I think that is important. I mean, we can't rely too much on just staying online. We need that kind of interaction with the chemist so that I think that is healthy. I mean, I believe that is the right way to do it.
It's also a way to support, like you said, MSMEs and your local economy. Because if you Blinkit everything, eventually you just want to have that standard, superimposed on everything else in your life. Like I want to Blinkit food. Next, I want to even you stop interacting, right? I mean, just today when I was buying the water bottles, I figured I could just Blinkit everything. Or I was in Pali and I was like, why don't I just go in the store and just get this tray that they have? So since I bought it. But the same also applies to chemists, because when you go to a chemist and you're like, I want this medicine, they don't have it. It's like, oh, we have the same salt in a different one. You can't really have that in an online pharmacy. You were in the UK for about 13 years, you said, and for about 6 you worked in a pharmacy. I think Boots, and then some other one which I've forgotten now.
Yeah, so I did my pharmacy degree in the UK. I did my research after that. And then I wanted some work experience in the UK. So I joined community pharmacy because I like that interaction with patients. So I was involved with a couple of companies where I went into a higher management position there at a very young age. I got a good exposure in terms of management of retail pharmacy. Then I went into hospital pharmacy to understand the clinical aspect of healthcare. And then I went into the industrial pharmacy scene where I learned about pharmaceutical research and how it is done, the business of research, and then started my own research company in the UK. After which I realized that this is my area of interest. Research is a place where I belong. So that is my journey, and then I moved back to India to be part of the family business. And yeah, I mean, here I am.
Take me inside Boots. Were you ever a pharmacist there, like working on the counter? Did you ever work on the counter?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a community pharmacist, as they say in the UK.
Okay.
So I used to work on the counter. I used to dispense prescriptions. I used to carry out a lot of clinical service as well. Like I used to run a smoking cessation clinic. I used to run drug misuse clinics there as well.
Talk to me about this. This is so fascinating. So you were behind the counter, and all kinds of people in London are coming to you for medicines and whatnot. Some strange, some unique encounters that perhaps changed the way you looked at the world, because all kinds of people come there. Some homeless people come there, some very ill people come there, some genuine regular patients come there. And as a pharmacist, you also have to deal with the stresses and tensions of the job, the dynamism.
Yeah, it was, I think that experience really taught me about getting involved with patients, to understand what patients want from a medicine perspective. Now, we can make medicines here, but if people are not going to use it or are not going to comply with it, it's, they need to be patient friendly. And working in the UK as a community pharmacist made me understand the concept of a patient-centric pharma industry. I realized that we need to understand what patients want. So I was advising as a pharmacist patients on a whole range of conditions, and then obviously if I couldn't, we used to recommend them to a doctor. So there was some very interesting incidents. I remember once when I was training, I used to work in a Boots pharmacy in St. John's Wood in London. And one day an elderly looking gentleman came for something, I'm not going to disclose for what. And I was talking to him, I served him, and I was very nervous because that was one of my first few days in the job. And then after he left, I realized it was Paul McCartney. And I was like, oh my God. And
That's crazy.
One of the pharmacy assistants there said, oh, do you know who he is? And I said, no, because I was so much involved in my work. And I was like, oh my God, I was talking to the big man himself, the Beatles. So it's like that got me really excited. So there was one kind of incident where I can not forget, So yeah, like that, there were many others also. I've also talked to a lot of drug addicts who used to come to the pharmacy for their methadone supplies. In the UK, they have a drug misuse service like that. I've been involved in people who used to come to give up smoking. So a whole lot. And through all of this, you learn so much about what you want to do. And I think those 4-5 years when I was in the UK as a community pharmacist made me realize that one day I'm going to go back to my country and make sure that our company becomes a truly patient-centric company. So that kind of taught me a lot of things about public health.
What was the smoking cessation program? I'm curious because I know many smokers and I know many drinkers. And all smokers and drinkers, without being, generic, have excuses for why they're in it. Maybe it's whatever. At the smoking cessation program, you must have seen lots of failure rates. Take me through a day of that program where people are coming in to try to quit their smoking, and what is the routine that you're running with them?
So there was a counseling service that had to be provided to understand their smoking habits. And thereafter, there were certain treatments that we could, legally prescribe as a pharmacist in the UK. So those were considered if we felt that they were suitable for it. We had to do certain health checks, like check their blood pressure and their blood glucose and all of those things. What I realized in all of this is the smoking addiction is probably one of the worst that you could have, even probably more than drugs or hard drugs itself. Because once somebody is hooked on, it's very difficult to quit. But having said that, we also had a lot of success in making sure people quit, and then when they quit, they used to send us presents and sweets and all of that, and even years after they quit, they still remembered me, that okay, you know what, he's the guy, the pharmacist who helped me in this journey, and I think that is very encouraging for me as well. I realize, this, you can have a genuine impact on someone's life, and then they appreciate it the way they did. So, and then also that also involved going to schools there and kind of educating the kids that, if you start smoking now, it'll be very difficult to give up by the time when you grow up. So don't smoke at all. So there was, and then there was a campaign also around drug use as well, which is a big issue, not just in the UK, but here in India as well. So getting involved in these campaigns made me realize that we are here for a reason. We're not just here to make money at all. So the reason why I mentioned it is because now what we do, I can take it to the next level now. That time I was in my little cozy pharmacy, just, treating a few patients here and there. Now we can have a much bigger impact.
Taking the red line back and forth.
That is the exciting part. There's a lot to do, but I think we're getting there slowly.
Very interesting. I think this time in the UK, working with the patients, I can see why it's shaped your philosophy towards more impact. I'm still stuck in the UK because I've never met a pharmacist who worked there, only because I've been to the UK in some very rough times, as the country is sort of falling apart with its crime problems and whatnot. And I'm sure even at a Boots, there must be people looking for medication. When they didn't find it, they would create a tantrum. So did you have security problems there ever?
There always has been. I mean,
Okay.
when you're trying to sell a controlled item which needs a prescription or which is kind of regulated, there will always be issues like that. We've had issues with security. We've had shoplifting and thefts and all kinds of things.
Fake prescriptions? Was that a thing?
Yeah, that also is there.
How did you
There's
spot-
counterfeit prescriptions, and you could tell from the handwriting it's not a known doctor, for example. So those things, we were trained to identify these problems. So we knew how to do. And somebody walked in, we knew if it was genuine or if it was something fake. So those things happened. We even had people. I mean, I've had experiences of people coming in with a knife and threatening you to give you something, and then the security had to run and all of that. So we've been part and parcel of this. So nothing really phases me after that experience. In many ways, I think in India I have had a relatively safer experience.
Of course. Chemists in
We don't
India
have
are
to
very
worry
safe.
about those things. In the UK, it can get a bit aggressive. But they have a system in place. So they have good security, and the police are very good, and they also know the areas where crime is known to be high. And so, but it's all part of the learning curve for us as well.
Very interesting. I really wanted to ask you about the UK because there's been a few times in my life in the UK and in London and in LA where I have been inside pharmacy stores and just inches away from a robbery, just inches away from an addict rushing at the receptionist trying to steal something or get something. But I have never seen this in Indian chemists, so that's why I wanted to ask you. I guess my final sort of wrapping up question for you would be, where do you see this pharma industry going in India in the next 5-6 years? Because one, there are not too many voices in pharma in India. Everyone seems to be behind their closed doors and they do their business. Not too many people from inside the industry with a big market cap come and talk about it. So for everyone watching, from an investor standpoint, from a career standpoint, from a stakeholder standpoint, where does this industry seem to be going?
Right now in India, we are mainly exporting low-cost generic medicines to the US and to other parts of the world. I think in the next 10 years, that will change to selling more innovative products, branded, patented products with a patent that has originated from India. So an innovation that comes from India, which is indigenous. And I think once we start exporting those kind of medicines, that will change the scene completely. Then we'll be considered as not just the pharmacy of the world, as we're always called, but we'll be considered as the world of pharmacy, which is what I always say, which should not just be manufacturing, it should be self-reliance in APIs, which are the main ingredients behind the medicines. It should be self-reliance in R&D, innovation, and then we'll be truly a value-driven system. So I think it is the right time for any investor to look at the pharma industry, because the kind of intellectual property that will come out of India in the next 10 years will be unbelievable. Will shock the world. I think we have the potential to. In my own company, we know the kind of things we're doing currently, but I know of many of my peers in the industry who are also doing some fantastic work. So it's an exciting time for the pharma industry. 10 years, I think, 10 years down the line, I think it will be a different space altogether. And we need to watch out for it.
Looking forward to seeing some miracles from the pharma industry. I just hope that there are more, in my layman understanding, I just hope there are more comprehensive drugs that take care of multitudes of things for people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Because I've seen in my parents and everyone else, they're the highest consumer of medicines, and they have a medicine for everything, right? And they don't have comprehensive solutions. If we can have super drugs in India, that is something that I would personally be invested in seeing. And hopefully, I would love for whatever name brand medicine to appear to me in an aisle in the UK when I'm shopping, as opposed to the generic brands that we've come to see. But Nikhil, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being a guest on Dostcast. Where can people find your work? Where can people engage with your company if they would like to?
Yeah, so we have our website entodpharma.com, where you can find all information about some of the stuff that we're doing in research. You can also email us as well. If anyone is interested in research, in being part of our team. We have almost 2,000 people being part of our company so far in India, and that is growing as well. And we would love to get the best talent on board when it comes to the pharma research space. I think that is what we're trying to work on. So we are very accessible. We are not sitting behind closed doors. We are out there in the open. I think showing that is very important also, because I am fully accountable for every medicine that is sold in the world.
That's a huge responsibility.
The buck stops with me. So I have to be as open and transparent as possible, because quality is everything, and we're selling sterile products, which goes inside the eye. So there's no room for mistakes at all. So I think we are very approachable, and I think that openness has made a difference with our doctors as well. They know that here is somebody they can just call any time of the day. Even 3 a.m, I get WhatsApp messages from doctors giving me ideas to do new things or anything like that. So I think being approachable as a leader is very important, and I'm also on social media, very active, but I don't tweet at 3 a.m. in the morning or anything like that.
Of course.
But I'm active to a point where I can communicate with the people about what we're doing. And I think in all of this, if I can motivate the youngsters in our country to maybe do the same, or maybe do it 100 times better than me, I think I would have achieved something.
Amazing. Thank you.
Great.
This was Dostcast with Nikkhil from ENTOD Pharmaceuticals, and we will see you all on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care. Bye-bye. Sayonara. Jai Hind.